compared to like, I'll compare to two things. First, to like traditional text-to-speech models, like what I mentioned earlier, like large language models now allows you to train on like much bigger data sets. Just like from like a model like perspective, instead of the model like looking at only like 50 hours of speech, like in case of things like maybe Siri or these things, you have one character, you have like maybe 100 hours maximum of speech of that character, and the model only seeing that. So the model can't really learn all the intonations and the styles of talking and all of this from one speaker from this limited number of hours. But our first model was trained on 50,000 hours. So when
Right.
you compare it to that, and those 50,000 hours of like hundreds of thousands of speakers. So, and then the next, like this model was trained like more than 1 million hours across languages, accents, every talking style.
Synthedia.
So, hi everyone. I'm Mahmoud, co-founder and CEO of PlayHT. So, earlier last year, we started exploring the idea of using large language models for speech generation. It was I mean, that was before like everything got crazy around like generative models and generative AI. But it was even then, it was very clear that large language models and these like GPT models are like way more capable than just doing text generation. We saw that in some other models with like other large language models like DALI or Stable Diffusion for images, and there was some new models coming for 3D and other modalities, and it was very clear that this will come also for speech, and it can bring a lot more capabilities. So we started working on that model, and we launched that around 8 months ago, like when like end of last year, when we launched our like that first version of the model. It wasn't actually like a large model compared to the numbers today, like billions of parameters, but compared to traditional text-to-speech models, it was pretty large. Like traditional text-to-speech models usually are trained on like maybe tens or maximum 100 hours of speech, and they're usually very small on like the number of speakers in the data set. And that's one of the reasons that it's really hard for these models to really truly learn how to speak like humans by seeing like only few speakers and very little data. But with that model, we're able to find like a lot more capabilities than traditional models, and we did that to show off like that what the results of that model and what it can do. We did this podcast end of last year. Maybe some of you have seen it when we did like that AI Joe Rogan interviewing Steve Jobs. It went very viral with like millions of views across different channels, and but we were very surprised by the reaction to that podcast, honestly. And people didn't believe that it is real, like that quality is real from digital voices. And we started to see a lot of users coming, and instead of using this model for or using our platform to generate content for like just traditional text-to-speech stuff like accessibility, IVR systems, or corporate training, like these like traditional use cases for speech synthesis or digital voices, we started to see people using that to replace human voices, like just clone their own voice and use it to create a YouTube channel, or like narrate your own audiobook, or like for marketing, commercial videos, and gaming. So like so many of these use cases. And with that was like a very high bar, and the expectations when you compare it to a human voice versus comparing it um, to like a TTS system, are like there's a huge difference in the capabilities of the model. But then with that high expectation, we started working on and the next version of the model, and that's the one that we will demo today, like in a moment. And that one has like the target there was to try to truly replace the human voice and add all the capabilities that users have been asking for, from like starting from like the controllability of the voice, the emotions, the ability to clone voices from like few seconds of audio instead of like taking hours. Like all traditional systems now, even from like large companies like Google and AWS and others, you need hours, like, or maybe even like tens of hours of speech to be able to truly clone a voice. But this model can clone voices from like the new model can clone voices from like only 20 seconds of audio or 10 seconds even across a huge range of accents and languages, and you can control like the style of talking or the things like the emotions of the voice and so on. And we're releasing it. We released it in beta this week on our platform, and under like what we're calling like instant cloning, so you can clone a voice from few seconds. I will give the stage to Hammad like in a moment to show you what you can do with that model and what's coming up next for it on our platform. But before that, I wanted to quickly tell you about like the vision of like PlayHT and what we're trying to do with these models. Like we really think like the future, I mean, it's very clear now that the future of media creation will become more generated more than created by humans. Like humans will not sit in a room anymore to record the voice or sit in front of a camera. Like very soon, like will not sit in front of a camera. They'll just have their own avatars that's talking and emotional and doing everything. And you can generate the video now. We're seeing like very like early results from like different open source models and other companies. And this will come to all modalities, and there will be platforms where people can describe what they're trying to create and get like versions of it, iterate over it, and get it done in fraction of the time than what it takes today. A very clear example for this for us, that this vision is like, this is the future and this is where things are going, was like a couple of months ago when South Park, they used us in one of their episodes. And traditionally, how would they do that? They would just go hire voiceover actors and like audition them and get them in a studio to, like during the day of the creating the episode. And like it takes time and hours, and it like that process like takes long time and iteration and like audio engineers and so on until you're able to get this like the end result that you want to have, like re-recording and editing and all of that. But then when they used us, it was only like 1 hour a night of creating the episode. The creator of like South Park used it and created that episode in like 1 hour, iterated over it and got the voices, and it was done. That was very clear. There's a huge difference between those two approaches. And the future will go more and more into that direction, where the creative person is still there. We are not replacing that, but then like the need for like large studios and large teams and audio engineers and all of this will reduce and give like empower so many creators and creative people to create all that content, like be it like for entertainment, for marketing, for gaming and so on. And like this is like our vision is like to be big part of that like creative media space, like for using generative AI. So giving it to Hammad, he will show you some stuff that will blow your mind now.
Okay, cool. So to bring that vision a reality, we're building like an easy to use product and also giving API access, to empower developers, creators, really trying to integrate voice or, like create the output they need. So what you're seeing here is our editor, and let me quickly show you what it offers. Is you have so in a nutshell, we offer stock voices. So a lot of users, they're looking for ready to use voices, and then we also have voice cloning, which is like the most sought after feature, and really like we allow users to clone voices using two different ways. One is the instant voice cloning, which is just requires a 30 seconds audio clip, and this is what our new model is capable of. Really, it's focused around like capturing accents, really making it expressive. And then for a more professional voice cloning, we have high fidelity, which needs a little bit more audio, somewhere like 10-20 minutes of audio, which really gives a result that's more robust and can speak across various emotions and accents. So here I am in my editor, trying to simulate what Elon and Zuck, if they happen to have a cage fight, what the conversation would look like. And what I've done is I've cloned their voices and just have my script here, and let's see what that sounds like.
Just here to prove once, and for all that coding isn't the only arena where I can take down Elon.
Interesting, Mark. Seem to recall it was your servers that went down.
Maybe so, Elon, but at least I don't have to shoot my projects into space to get them off the ground.
Well, Mark, some of us have aspirations beyond turning human interaction into a virtual ed fest.
Is that so? And how are those aspirations working out for your sleep schedule? Elon still sleeping at the factory?
Better than using sleep as an excuse for not making a decision, Mark.
So, I mean, these voices were just cloned using like few seconds of audio, and you can hear how it really captures the speech along with the accent, and and it really because these voice models are built on large language models, they really understand the context of the speech, and they're very expressive and emotional. The next feature actually we're adding is a way to control these voices and have emotions on top of them. So you can really control a voice to either speak in a way of excitement or anger, even though they understand the context. A further layer of controllability really makes these voices very useful. And we also allow users to regenerate the same samples, because regeneration is unique. I mean, every time you render, it's a generative model, so the generations are unique. So from a UI point of view, having the capability to come up with multiple generations and then selecting the one you like, and also controlling the speech, really makes it this technology very useful. So the other way of accessing is, of course, our voice cloning API and the speech generation API. And the challenge here has been generative models usually they take a lot of power and time to create content. We've been doing a lot of work to bring down the latency, and now we have an offering where our latency is less than a second, and really to go behind real-time use cases. In some cases, we can even get down the latency to 700 milliseconds or so, and this allows us to empower use cases like customer support or phone calls or real-time conversations, which is very interesting. So that was in a nutshell the product, and I'm happy to answer any questions we have here.
I want to add something very quickly, that the Zuck voice, he seems a little bit robotic, but that's his voice. If you hear the original sample, we just the model is just copying his voice, so that's not us. Yeah.
I love that one. Some people know that now that our tech giants are squaring off in the social media space, they're planning to potentially square off in the octagon. And so we'll move from trash talking to maybe a throwdown here very soon. That was fun. I'm really glad you did that. It was a great demonstration there. And I'm particularly interested in a couple of different things. So first of all, let's talk about South Park. So that was great. I remember seeing that at the end. I remember, okay, so this was my prediction that became true within 3 weeks. I said, okay, in the first quarter of this year, we're going to see something from South Park and ChatGPT. It's that big. And I sort of know how their production schedule, they do things like cultural zeitgeist is a big thing. So they did this whole thing on, and then at the end, I'm just watching the rolling credits. I'm like, what is going on here? And did you know they were going to do that?
Yeah, they told us the same week, they reached out to us, and they are actually like Trey and that team, they're very they're always looking at like the technologies, like the new stuff, and trying to utilize it and use it. Even though actually I think our first model wasn't like the best thing like that can be used in that context. It needed like a lot of work to get like these voices and the stuff they were doing, but the feedback from them was similar to like was the same thing, the same incentive. Like we start to work on the new model, like we want to be able to control, if we want to use this in every episode, we need to be able to control the emotions, the inflections, the styles, these things, which like all that stuff that we incorporated in this new model. And like we're adding all of that to our UI soon, so people can work on like really create like creative content there. Yeah.
So that was an important outreach to you in terms of thinking about your prioritization for the feature roadmap.
Yeah, for sure. And we have seen like similar feedback from like many other people, like and gaming companies, like where also they need like that range of emotions in the gaming characters and so on. So yeah, we have seen it like from like many others as well.
Yeah, I guess that's the beauty of like an MVP model. Not to say that this is just an MVP, but it's like putting the product out there, you get that feedback, people start using it, and then you can actually build it for what is going to make the most impact for them. Now, you mentioned something else as well. You talked about this idea of voice cloning. It sounds like you were surprised that so many people, just everyday consumers, wanted to clone their voices, but it seems like a great novelty at the very least.
Yeah, and the use cases were just like, honestly, when we started this at the beginning, we didn't expect that voice cloning will be the biggest use case there, from individuals or creating, like who lost their voice from like an accident or an illness, or like who lost someone like, who passed away in their family, and they want to sort of hear him back. And, that's like healing to people. And like just so many amazing use cases there. And like we have so many YouTubers, like because initially we used to support only English, so we had so many YouTubers from other countries who using this to clone their voices and make it speak English, because you can clone any voice from any language. So you can be speaking Japanese, put the Japanese voice there, and it will start talking English. So to create YouTube channels to target these markets, English speaking markets, and like so many like in marketing and companies and gaming. So we found like actually the use cases around voice cloning are like very interesting, and like people are using it so much versus just using a stock voice that everyone else is using.
Yeah, this is really fascinating to me because it is not something that I considered. I didn't think about that idea particularly, but it makes complete sense now that you say it, that I'm not a native English speaker and I can clone my voice because it's going to understand the emotion, the intonation, the timbre. It's going to understand the key elements of my voice. And then I can just type in any language and it'll just put the information. It's as if I'm a native English speaker.
Exactly. And right now we are doing also the opposite. We'll be launching a bunch of languages next week, like Hindi, Brazilian, Portuguese, Spanish, and many others. You will do the same. Like if you are like Brit, you can make yourself start speaking Spanish or Hindi or Arabic. Like, you can. Yeah, and that's huge for like creators, like distributing their content to so many other places, because I think only like 20% of the world speaks English or something, but you still have the rest.
Okay, so the Joe Rogan, Steve Jobs podcast, very popular. I think you've done maybe a couple other ones. Is this a potential solution for you? I know you provide software, but I mean, it's very entertaining. Are you going to do more of this?
Yeah, we have been thinking about this a lot, like just turning this into a platform where people can just create a lot of these podcasts, but we never got to it. We were been focused mainly on creating this new model that can enable these things to be so easy, and where we got there now, because creating that podcast, you needed to get like few hours of Steve Jobs' voice, like clean audio, and few hours of like Joe Rogan, and have like two models trained on this thing. So it was like very cumbersome for like everyday creator to do that. But now it takes like this, like Zach and Elon, it's like 10 seconds each to create, and it's instant. So now would be the time we can use this to probably open up like a platform for people to create a lot more like these things.
Yeah, and I want to close on that, this idea of how little content duration you need now, how you only need 10 to 20 seconds now. What changed? Because that just wasn't true a couple of years ago. We've seen everything become higher quality. We saw Valley come out a little while ago in terms of 2 seconds of audio, although I'd say the quality is a bit questionable with that 2 seconds. What changed in your tech or in the market that is, it's a step change? It's like an order of magnitude less than what we would have looked at just a year ago.
I'll compare to two things. First, to like traditional text-to-speech models, like what I mentioned earlier, like large language models now allows you to train on like much bigger data sets. Just like from like a model like perspective, instead of the model like looking at only like 50 hours of speech, like in case of things like maybe Siri or these things, you have one character, you have like maybe 100 hours maximum of speech of that character, and the model only seeing that. So the model can't really learn all the intonations and the styles of talking and all of this from one speaker from this limited number of hours. But our first model was trained on 50,000 hours. Right. So when you compare it to that, and those 50,000 hours of like hundreds of thousands of speakers. So, and then the next, like this model was trained like more than 1 million hours across languages, accents, every talking styles. We did a lot of work in making it as diverse, because we knew this will have a huge impact on like this zero-shot cloning, like just dropping in few seconds and getting the voice to work. Because like the model knows how to talk like a South Indian accent, for example. So it doesn't need so much audio to learn this. It just needs some small features of the voice to be able to mimic it.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. Great idea. I think it's really interesting what you're bringing to the market, and it was fun to see you on South Park. It's always fun to see when South Park parodies the world, and they use technology to do that. Hammad,
sure, South Park will be done completely with PlayHT.
Exactly. Well, Mahmoud, Hammad, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Synthedia, the business and technology of generative AI. Generative AI, synthetic media, large language models, image generators, virtual humans, voice clones, deepfakes, ChatGPT, and more.